Have you ever thought about your shoes, those leather sneakers, polished boots, or soft sandals, and wondered how different they might be if you lived in the Middle Ages? Now here's the real question. What if the very shoes you wore every day were slowly destroying your feet? Step with me, not into a clean shopping mall filled with glowing store windows and fresh new sneakers, but into a medieval cobblestone street. It's dawn. The air smells of wood smoke and manure, of freshly baked bread and damp stone. The ground beneath you is uneven, cracked, and sticky with mud. You look down, and instead of cushioned soles or arch support, you see your feet crammed into something that looks more like a flattened leather sock than footwear. No padding, no comfort, just raw hide stitched together, thin as paper, strapped onto your feet. At first you think, this can't be so bad. People walked like this every day. But wait. Imagine years of it walking, running, working, kneeling, fighting always with your toes shoved into awkward points, your arches collapsing, your ankles aching. Welcome to the world of medieval shoes, a world where fashion and practicality constantly collided, and where beauty often meant pain. Close your eyes and picture a medieval marketplace. The noise is overwhelming. Butchers hacking at meat, women bargaining over cheese, a crier shouting out the latest royal decree. People jostle shoulder to shoulder, dirt and straw grinding underfoot. Look down again. Their shoes are all different shapes and sizes, but none of them resemble anything that would pass for comfortable today. The poor wear turn shoes flimsy, soft leather slippers stitched inside out, then flipped right side out so the seam doesn't rub. They're so thin you can feel every stone, every thorn. The wealthy, though, they've taken it a step further. They slip into long pointed shoes known as peasants. The toes stretch far beyond the natural foot, curling upward like the snout of some fantastic beast. To walk in them is to wobble, to stumble, to crush your toes into unnatural shapes. But why? Why would anyone willingly destroy their feet in this way? The answer is status. The Middle Ages were a time when clothing was a language, and shoes spoke volumes. A simple peasant in rough wool and muddy turn shoes sent one kind of message: survival, toil, endurance. A noble in velvet robes and ridiculous pointed shoes that dragged along the ground sent another message: wealth, leisure, superiority. The longer your shoes, the higher your rank. Some nobles' poulains stretched over 2 feet long, so long they had to be tied to their legs with chains just to walk without tripping. Imagine that fashion so extreme that even standing still hurt. But here's the darker side. Those shoes didn't just make you look silly. They permanently reshaped feet. Toes became twisted, joints deformed, bunions swelled, arches collapsed. Archaeologists who have dug up skeletons from medieval cemeteries have found shocking evidence. Bones bent and warped by a lifetime of wearing shoes that forced the foot into unnatural positions. One skeleton even showed the same hallmarks of modern high-heel damage centuries before heels existed. These people weren't just uncomfortable. They were crippled by fashion. Now, think of a knight. You imagine him armored head to toe, riding into battle, invincible. But beneath his steel greaves, his feet are still trapped in those same fragile shoes. Before battle, he marches across rough ground, jagged with stones, feeling every stab through the thin leather. Even nobles didn't wear thick soles. They wore elegance. Some chroniclers even complained that soldiers' fashionable shoes made them stumble in war. And in 1368, King Charles V of France was so alarmed at the impractical peasants that he outright banned them for soldiers. But people still wore them. Because fashion, it seems, always wins against reason. Step into the life of a medieval craftsman. You rise at dawn, your body sore, and you step into your turn shoes. At first, they feel light and snug. You go to work hammering iron, shaping wood, or hauling stone. By midday, Your soles ache so badly you can barely stand. There is no cushion, no arch, no barrier between you and the sharp cobbles. Every pebble is a stab, every crack a trip. At night, when you take them off, your feet are red, blistered, swollen. But you'll wear the same shoes tomorrow, because that's all there is. Now imagine winter. The streets are icy. Snow piles up against timber doors. You slide your feet into the same thin leather turn shoes, maybe stuffed with straw if you're lucky. The cold seeps in instantly, numbing your toes, turning them purple. Frostbite was common, especially among the poor. Shoes offered no protection. Some chroniclers wrote that peasants wrapped rags or old cloth around their feet, desperate for warmth, but often it was useless. And yet, shoemakers kept making the same designs, thin, fashionable, fragile, because that was what people wanted. Shoes also carried another problem: hygiene. In an age before paved sidewalks and sewage systems, streets were rivers of filth, animal dung, human waste, rotten food. And your shoes? They were so thin that the wet seeped in, soaking your socks, or if you had no socks, soaking your skin. Imagine trudging through muck, your leather turn shoes squelching, the smell clinging to you all day. It's no wonder infections were rampant. Cuts and sores became dangerous. What started as a blister could end in fever, or worse, death. Fashion, however, was relentless. By the late Middle Ages, the pointed polaines became even more exaggerated. Laws tried to control them. Kings declared that only nobles could wear shoes with points longer than 6 inches, while commoners had to keep theirs short. The shoes became a badge of hierarchy, a way to literally measure your worth. But the longer the shoes, the greater the pain. Walking became almost impossible. Men minced across castle halls like dancers balancing on stilts. Women's shoes, though shorter, often squeezed their feet so tightly that deformities lasted a lifetime. Picture a medieval feast. Candles flicker, goblets clink, musicians play lutes in the corner. Nobles sit in velvet chairs, laughing as roasted boar and spiced wine are served. Look under the table, and you'll see those absurd shoes, curled and pointed, taking up space like alien growths. The nobles smile, but their toes ache. The shoes are so tight that some can't feel their little toes at all. But they don't dare remove them, because fashion isn't about comfort. It's about power. To suffer was to signal superiority. Archaeologists have confirmed this suffering. In Cambridge, England, studies of medieval skeletons revealed that those buried in wealthier parts of town showed far more foot deformities than those in poorer districts. The rich had literally crippled themselves for fashion. The poor had sore feet, yes, but the rich had twisted bones. And so medieval shoes ruined feet in more ways than one. They caused physical pain, they spread disease, they worsened frostbite, and they crippled those who wore them. But they also revealed something deeper about the medieval world. The obsession with status, the willingness to endure agony just to show wealth, the way fashion has always demanded sacrifice. Think about it. You can walk into a store today and buy sneakers designed to support every curve of your foot, engineered for comfort, tested by science. In the Middle Ages, there was none of that. A shoemaker simply cut leather, stitched it, and sold it. There was no left shoe or right shoe. Both were the same shape. Your feet had to adapt to the shoe, not the other way around. And the result was centuries of suffering, silent and unavoidable. Now let me take you on one last walk. It's late evening in a medieval town. The sun has set, and the streets are dark, lit only by torchlight. You hear laughter spilling from a tavern, the clatter of wooden cups. You walk slowly, your shoes thin, your feet raw, every step a reminder of the day's labor. Around you, others limp two-nights, peasants, nobles, all trapped in the same prison of leather. The shoes look different, some plain, some absurdly long, but all of them hurt. And no one complains? Because that is simply life. So why did medieval shoes ruin your feet? Because they were never designed for you. They were designed for status, for survival, for appearance. Your comfort was irrelevant. Whether you were a poor farmer trudging through frozen mud, or a noble strutting into court with shoes like daggers, your feet bore the cost. And centuries later, we can still see the scars and the bones that remain. Next time you lace up your sneakers or slip on a cushioned sandal, remember this. In the Middle Ages, every step was pain disguised as normality. Shoes weren't a convenience. They were a curse. And the story of those shoes tells us something haunting, that sometimes the things we wear to show who we are end up destroying us from the ground up. And that's why medieval shoes ruined your feet. But there are more tales hidden in the past, waiting to be uncovered, stories of armor that cooked men alive, food that poisoned instead of nourished, and castles that were far less glamorous than they seemed. If you're ready to keep walking down these cobbled paths of history, stay with me. The past is not dead. It's right beneath your feet.